Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you can take your seats, please. I don't know if it really makes any difference because we've got microphones and everything everywhere. But unless you're settled in, if you want to move in closer or anything, I don't know, just a thought. But you're welcome to do that if you want to. Don't be shy. And don't forget that I know everybody in this conference, so don't think by sitting far away I won't spot you and ask you questions anyway. So this session is the tier supplier's perspective. As we know, more and more of responsibility for the tier suppliers is being passed for the automotive logistics and automotive supply chain is being passed to the tier suppliers. We also know that the tier suppliers perhaps haven't got the resources, whether it's manpower, money, that the big car makers and vehicle makers have got. The tier suppliers are under tremendous cost pressure as well. So it's kind of, if being in automotive logistics is tough, then this is one of the toughest places to be. And it is for me, it's something from a personal perspective that I'm having a big push on this year for the next 12, 18 months, is to improve and understand the challenges of the tier suppliers. So we want to change that, grow that in some kind of way, whether it's our coverage in our magazines, whether it's sessions at conferences, whether it's any other different communities, ways we can connect companies. Because I've done various kind of unofficial surveys, and small surveys. I'd write to the top 10 tier suppliers, to their heads of logistics, global logistics. So maybe just 10 emails here, 15 emails somewhere to get feedback on what's important. And one of the things that's obviously seems to be important is the need to connect, the need to collaborate, the need to share information in all directions. The tier suppliers feel that they need, the car makers, the vehicle makers need to understand them more. They perhaps need to understand the vehicle makers more. The logistics service providers, sometimes there's a perception that logistics service providers kind of provide a service to car makers and then try to provide that same service to tier suppliers. Maybe they need a different kind of, special services or different ways of working. So these are the things that I want to identify, learn from you, on what we can do differently for the part suppliers and the tier suppliers globally. So that's something that we're trying to do. And those of you in the audience or those watching us on the live stream, any thoughts, suggestions on what we can do to encourage better communication for the tier suppliers, that's really, like I said, a big target for me globally. So today's session, we're very lucky to put a great panel together, giving kind of different perspectives. The first speaker will be Nitin Sethi, who's the Director of IT, Business Engagement and Transformation from Visteon. Then a couple of panel members, Nathan Lawson, the Senior Director of North America Purchasing from Cooper Standard, and Faith Wandry, Vice President of Global Supply Chain Management for American Axle. So we'll have a good discussion on what kind of on the points that I made at the beginning, the needs, requirements, of being a tier supplier. And perhaps, and obviously with the participation of Nitin, maybe looking at how technology can play a role in supporting this industry or supporting this sector. So again, although we've got an initial presentation, it really is an interactive, as the whole conference is supposed to be, is an interactive session to share ideas. It isn't a lecture. We're not here to tell you what should happen. It's an interactive session to learn from each other what the industry needs to do to develop and to improve and to become, and to support what we've heard the first couple of sessions, to support the automotive industry or mobility industry of the future. So it's a great pleasure that I'd like to welcome to the podium the first speaker of this session, Nitin Sethi from Visteon. Thank you, Nitin.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nitin Sethi. I'm a director for IT, business transformation and engagement from Visteon. I joined Visteon almost 4 months back, and one of my key objectives of getting hired in Visteon was kind of a journey which Visteon was undertaking. And as our COIO mentioned in the morning, that in the dynamics of the auto industry we are living today, it's no more an IT and a business. Both of those entities have together. A technology can't go up and be a silver bullet to solve all the business problems unless there is kind of a business initiative and you amalgamate the business with IT. And that's where my title comes in terms of doing a business transformation and engaging with the business and seeing how we can collaborate and work together to make a use of IT. So during the course of next 15-20 minutes, I'll talk to you about some of the challenges we are facing at Visteon, which pretty much resonates with some of the challenges which I believe are being faced by Tier 1 companies or Tier 1 suppliers, and what are we doing at Visteon to cater some of those challenges which we are facing. So to give you a little brief overview of Visteon, we are a leading supplier for cockpit electronics and autonomous driving. We spun off from Ford out there and had a lot of different entities, but right now we are focusing primarily on cockpit electronics and ADAS. That's our kind of a very focused business area. We are in kind of a $3.15 billion in annual sales with around 10,000 employees with 19 manufacturing locations all across, and we have around 18 technical centers. So as a company, we are doing pretty good. We are having a total share returns of around 160% from 2015 to 2017. So coming up to some of the challenges we are facing, as you all know, right, auto industry is facing a big market headwinds because of a lot of different reasons, whether it's tariffs, whether because of the cost factors there, which are pretty much getting translated to our suppliers also. So one of the things is definitely every year we are seeing a lot of downward pricing pressures by OEMs, which is asking us to reduce the cost, which is being a continuous challenge for us. Shrinking product life cycle, as a result of a software being a key component, our product life cycles are getting reduced tremendously. We are becoming, as at least from a Visteon perspective, I see, we are becoming more of a software and a solution company, and what we used to be an automotive supplier with a kind of a plastics and steel foundry company 10 years back. If I look into my bill of material today, a key component of that is the software and some of the electronic components which we are using, which are getting put in the cars. Now, the components which we are now manufacturing, like our raw material, like resistors, capacitors, and some of those things, we have started competing with the big consumer electronic firms, which we are not as a big fish as them. So the challenge from a supply chain perspective is that we still have to keep up our inventories. We still have to keep up with the supply chain pressures, which our OEMs are putting on us, and it's putting up a lot of pressure on the supply chain. There has been a continuous demand from a real-time manufacturing and inventory visibility from OEMs. Some of our OEMs are asking for a specific amount of inventory to be there, and with the kind of a supply constraints we're having, it's becoming a challenge for a day out there. Second key thing is the software is becoming as a disruptor. As I said, we are becoming more as a solution and a software company. Right now, I was looking into one of the statistics. The lines of a code in the car is more than the code which is there in a 747, a space shuttle, or a fighter jet. So the amount of the software which is getting into the car is humongous, which is creating us a lot of pressure. The way the core processes are being catered in terms of it's no more easy as I'm putting up those parts together, putting a work order, and getting manufactured. Now I have a software components which are coming in place. I can't have a part revisions. I have to keep a multiple part revisions because I have a part which is being there 5 years old. For me to keep a warranty, I have some software upgrade which is coming up. I still keep my part live. So that has been causing a lot of challenges in our supply chain and operation processes. The way we go up and capitalize our software, the way we are doing the pricing for the software, from a costing perspective, from our continuous delivery perspective. That's bringing a lot of challenges in the organization. Workforce digitization is another area. So with all the sophistication, and I think this has been talked up in the morning a lot, with a lot of this workforce digitization, software coming into place, the basic DNA of the company is changing from a traditional auto to more of a system and solution company. We are acting more as a software company, but we are not there. So in terms of the resources, I can't go up and get the talent which Google and Facebook's and some of the big software companies are getting, but the functions and some of the operations which we are doing are very similar to what those companies are being doing. So that's been a continuous challenge for us to go up and get the talented workforce. Right now, for embedded software, if I look into stats, at least I have more than 100 positions right now vacant, which I am not able to fulfill because I don't have a talent in the market, which can go up there. And it's not easy for me to go up and retrain or rewire some of my existing resources because the skills which are required to do some of those activities are very completely different. So, as I said, we have been competing with the industry and other tech companies for the same talent, so that's becoming a challenge. No, so what we are doing to address this? So we are tackling this problem into 3 areas. One is we are doing our basically a core process optimization. We are a firm believer that IT can't be a silver bullet and can solve everything. It has to start from a business process. As I see, becoming more of a software company, our processes are changing. Because of a different diversification in different countries, what we found out, we have different processes. To just give an example, we were talking like a few minutes back about a visibility to a supplier or visibility to our OEMs, right? A lead time, definition of a lead time or a shipment date is different for me in every different plant operations. So when I go up and create a KPI and a KRI and build up a right dashboard, I can't get the result out there because I don't have a proper definition of what my foundation elements is. My part number is being perceived as something different in engineering versus what's being perceived in manufacturing. So that's the challenge which we were facing as a company. So what we are doing is, apart from implementing a solutions, what we are focusing a lot is, we are going to reduce the process of variability by implementing a standard repeatable processes. And we are simplifying the workflows. Now, how we are doing it? So one way is we are definitely challenging a business. We have came up with some kind of a core operations group or core process improvement groups, which are continuously challenging the people, helping out in standardizing a process. Other thing which we are doing is we are implementing a lot of out-of-box standard solutions, which are bringing the best practices from the industry. And our kind of challenge, we are putting up a challenge to our businesses that we are going to stick with out-of-box. We are going to take what functionality which is being given by these solutions. Invoice to me, like accounts payable, right? Invoice to me is invoice. I create an invoice, I approve it, and I pay it. What is different in Visteon? What makes it different than what other 10 companies are doing? And we have made that process so difficult right now that if somebody has to request for a process deviation, which is being given by a software, they have to really put up a business case together and have to justify for the cost, additional cost, which we have to take to develop the software. And that itself is challenging the people, making people think twice that why I can't adopt a solution or a system which is coming out of box rather than going for a customization. And which I think is helping IT out because it is reducing our support cost. It is helping us to go up and upgrade our solutions more rapidly, more faster, and bring up an efficiency in the system. On the other hand, we are helping to standardize the business processes. So I think those are 2 things which we are coming hand to hand where it's helping us out. So second thing we are doing is we are trying to rewire some of the core business processes. I think as Raman talked in the morning, we are upgrading our ERP application and moving to cloud. Again, the thought process here is, let's go up and use the standard out-of-box functionality. Let's use some of the advancements and the technology improvements which our vendors are doing. And also that is providing us opportunity to work with the vendors so they can invest with us and take some of the functionality and some of the gaps which we have in our processes, which are not catered by a software. They can come up and invest with us and can build up that, and it can help in commercializing with them. One of the key things which we are doing out there is we are not going with a very big suppliers or a very big software providers, which is giving us a kind of a little bit more flexibility to work with them, rather than with working with a kind of a market leaders in the company who will basically force us to go up and say, yes, this is what we got it, and this is something we can't able to extend it. So I think that's working in our favors, and that's working with both our software providers as well as the SI partners also. Some of the SI partners who are ready to work with us, ready to invest in some of the POCs, which they think that can provide us a value, we can be a reference customer. I think that's been helping both from a cost perspective as well as from a process efficiency perspective. We are implementing a state-of-art PLM application. Currently, our PLM application was kind of 4 different applications working in tandem, where I create a part in one system, I create an electronic BOM in another system, I create a manufacturing BOM in another system, and then the manufacturing goes into my another ERP application. So we have consolidated everything and now implementing one of state-of-the-art PLM application, right from cradle to grave, from a product inculcation to right from where it goes to manufacturing. We have seamless flow. Again, our principle is pretty much going out of box, taking whatever the industry best practices and changing the process as it goes. Then we are doing a lot in kind of a state-of-art tools to in terms of OTM applications, which is our transportation management application, to reduce our freight cost, do some freight consolidation. That's another initiative we have been taking. And the key thing is around all this, what we felt out was around the data. Data is becoming in a driver's seat for now. We are inculcating no more PowerPoints in our presentation when we go put up to executives. We are coming up with the dashboards which can provide us the real life data out there. So there is no more a stale information. Somebody takes the information, then put up into an Excel sheet, and then put on PowerPoint. We are writing the data out there. The other thing which we have been doing is we are trying to, we have just started to try to amalgamate our machine data along with our ERP and some of our MES data and come up with the right, so we can have actual versus what's planned or what is being reported into our ERP applications. So so for us right now, BI data is becoming a king. Everything which is being asked for, its data is being given some more like efficiencies and some of the hidden challenges or hidden patterns which we didn't knew before. So I think that's the key for us. The last thing which I think I just want to put up a thought out here, there has been a lot of talks around a blockchain, immersive technologies, prescriptive intelligence, AI, machine learning. And I was having some discussions with a lot of folks out there. A lot of these terms and technologies are being considered as a silver bullet which can go up and come in and solve the problem. So what we are, as a Visteon, we are saying that it's not a technology which can just go up and solve the problem. You have to look from a business context perspective. I'll just give an example. There has been a lot of noise around, or it is being perceived that going for a public cloud is going to solve everything. And everybody should go to cloud. Now, what we saw, especially our engineering function, is we are not elastic. We are not a retailer. We are not something like a financial company where we have a kind of a demand for a particular time. We have a pretty much a static demand. Now, for us, it's more reasonable to go up and buy a piece of a hardware for my engineering function rather than hosting into a public cloud. Now, in certain other areas, maybe an ERP, or when I do a continuous integration, a cloud solution will be right. So you have to really look from a technology perspective and look into the relevance where the technology can play a role, rather than just going up and saying, hey, right now cloud is my latest, AI is latest, go up and implement it. So we are, I think our journey and our thought process, and that's where I wanted to have more discussions and keep this as a thought to this group, that don't take a technology as a kind of a silver bullet and say this is going to solve everything in a solution. Let's have a business case, maybe start small, do a kind of a MVP where you can go up and prove that out by right technology, a right solution from the technology, and come up with the right technology to cater the business problem. So I think that's something which I will leave it to, and then we can talk about a little bit more in panel discussions in terms of any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you, Nitin. A good start to the session. because as you said, what we're going to be talking about now is the issues that people face, particularly in this instance in tier suppliers, supply chain management and logistics. And too often we kind of hope for the silver bullet. You mentioned a few of the buzzwords, blockchain, robotics, 3D printing, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, sometimes it seems like you want to be able to say, yeah, I'll have one of those. I'll have an Internet of Things, please. In fact, and I'll also have a 3D printing, and it will solve all your problems. But unfortunately, as you said, there's a business case behind all of these things. Just want to introduce the other panelists. Nathan Lawson, as I said, Senior Director of North America Purchasing for Cooper Standard, and Faith Wandry, the Vice President of Global Supply Chain Management for American Axle. Just wanted to ask Nathan and Faith. Nathan, what are your biggest challenges? What are your what are the issues, your pain points at the moment as a part supplier from a supply chain logistics?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, and just so you know, if you're sharing your pain points, we've only got an hour.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think, as the rise of material costs on the OEM front and across the supply chain, there's more pressure on the tiers to deliver cost savings and overall network savings. Mm-hmm. And so now more than ever, there's a focus on, are you optimized? Do you have full trucks? Are you delivering just in time? Just in my 3.5 years at a tier one, I've noticed a shift of focus on inventory and the focus on an optimized supply chain. So no question, the pressure is being pushed. That's why I think there's a need and a want from everyone involved to be more engaged on a solution, and including business partners like IT, manufacturing, engineering, and working cross-functionally on really taking cost out. So, there's a want and a need that's never been there, or at the level I think that it is now. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it's us, along with all the partners in the room, to put together value propositions and introduce innovation and really drive out waste. And that there's a need for it today, and it's only going to increase as additional tariffs come through and material costs go up.
Okay. Faith?
Okay, so at American Axle, I'd say externally, it would be the transportation costs of the last 4 to 6 months with the driver shortages and the ALD introduction and that kind of thing is really throwing a curveball at us to be able to try to manage that down. Next, I would say the tariffs and the retaliatory tariffs are also the next group that of external influencers on American Axle. We are very local. We buy local for the most part, but there are things that are coming in across the borders. Mm-hmm. So it's not a huge impact, but where we're finding the impact is not on our tier level, but the next tier is down. When the suppliers are coming in saying, we're buying from this country and now here's what it's gonna cost you, right? So it's not so much at what we're at the level we're at, but the next level down is driving costs up, I'll say, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then internally, we, at American Axle, we acquired Metaldyne. So we went from 17 plants to 75 plants in the last year. And so the infrastructure and the integration, we used to have two software systems, Oracle ERP, and we had a Plex. And 2 different business units had those, and it was very easy to standardize and to integrate. And now we have, I think there's 36 different ERP systems across the board. So that integration is, it's I would say the synergy part of the integration went very, very well of the 2 companies, but standardizing and supply chain has been a rough go.
Okay, thank you. And maybe I'll start with Nate on this one, because you were recently, as you said, 3.5 years ago at a car maker. Is it completely different? Is supply chain and logistics completely different at tier 1 compared to being a car maker?
Well, I think, yes. Simple answer, yes. I mean, one, it's a lot smaller scale, so you don't have the leverage from a price point. But ultimately, you've got, and I was just joking with Faith about this prior to being up here, is you have all shape and sizes in terms of plant complexity. So, on a standard OEM, you've got a plant that runs 3 shifts, produces X amount of vehicles. It's very simple. You know, in our business now, we're producing many different product lines and parts, so it challenges the supply chain there. And then, you know, they're just different. It's different operationally in a plant. So you could have 30 different plants that are operating 15 different ways, and so that drives complexity as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll add to that, like the standardization, when we try to put processes in place and policies and procedures that cross all the business units. And when you're walking into a plant that's got 37 people total versus a plant that's got over 5,000, it's very, very difficult. So they're very, very high level now. So we've brought them up to a very high level, but then you read it and you think it's not really telling anything because it's so high level. So.
Yeah. And do the logistics service providers support, do they come to you with a car maker solution, something that they've done for Ford or GM or Fiat Chrysler or whoever, and say, we've got one of these, do you want one? Or do they design, are they good at designing special solutions for part suppliers?
Well, I think it should be on a pull basis. So it's really, you know, the tiers going and asking, saying, here's my problem, how can you help me with the solution? So as opposed to the push of, we have all these solutions out there that will solve everything. You know, it's really getting everybody cross-functionally around, here's our problem, and then going out with your business partners to find a solution, honestly.
Yeah. Okay.
And you want to spread the wealth, I'll say a little bit too. So, for example, with one 3PL we have for in the U.S., and then we have a 3PL in Mexico, and then we have a global freight forwarding 3PL. So they all have their own solutions, but then I have a plant that's got to go into 3 different systems. But then if you leave it all in the 3PL area and I bring it all into one, then I lose my ability to negotiate, and I have all my money in one basket, and that's not such a good plan either. So. It almost feels like now we should be considering, should we put that technology in our own house, so that way it doesn't matter which and also overseas we had 4 plants and now we have over 20 plants, so they're all on their own because over here we don't know, we're not the experts on ground transportation in Europe or and that kind of thing, so we let them do that, so then that isn't in those hubs either, so.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add a couple of points there. I think, you know, you've seen a lot of consolidation in the tier 1 and tier 2 world. I think it'll rapidly continue, and the ability of the supply chain to react, quickly realize synergies, get clear data that supports decision making is going to be a key enabler for everyone to be successful. So that's going to be a real collaboration with the service providers and then the customers to really pick out a solution that best fits your unique supply chain, because everybody's different, and really moving quick. And that to me is one of the focus areas of the next 5 years.
And I'll just add to that too, because I think adaptability is also, we talk about agility for a lot of years, and now it's really about adaptable, because as the OEs are able to sell vehicles, they're pushing those vehicles they can sell at that time, which changes our mix dramatically. So something I used to have a truckload a day, now I only have 7 baskets. I mean, I need the 3PL to be able to be, I know, to take that EDI and be able to say, okay, I'll throw this one on an LTL, or I'll put it on an LTL consol, versus just, you know, me finding out that all of a sudden I find out that, you know, why is the cost so high, and our team deep dives it and finds out that we're shipping air, right? So it's, you know, the adaptability has got to come along with the technology.
Okay. And if anyone's got any questions, please raise your hands, wait for the microphone, and then say your name and ask the question, obviously. But don't worry, I've got about 2 hours worth of questions here, so there's not too much pressure on that. Obviously, we love the car makers. They're fantastic, and they can't do anything wrong. But what can they do to help you help them? Because in a way, they're your customer. So what can they do to help you to help them? And maybe I'll bring Nitin in on this one.
So I think one of the key things, at least I can speak from an IT perspective, is with all our OEMs, in terms of the communication methods, the formats which they are looking for, our basic documents are very different.
Yeah.
There is no kind of a standard industry prescribed. We had an EDI, but that EDI is now somehow is kind of phasing out. A lot of people are using different APIs which still don't have a right standard to it. So that continues to be a challenge. The other piece is in terms of the information which they request for. I have seen some of the OEMs go to very nth level of detail for the information which they ask for. Some are looking at a very high level. So I think to face the point, there is no one solution or one system that can cater all the OEMs. So what that results out there is that you have to either build up a solution and have to somehow modify it, or then have to have multiple processes to support that. That's where major challenge we are facing. Internally, you have, as I said before also, you have a control that you can standardize the process. You can bring up an out-of-box process and say, here we have a better control to it. But when it comes to the external partners, I think that continues to be a challenge.
Nate?
I guess from my perspective, it's the collaboration up front. If you looked at a lot of the supply chain in which we're stressed today, or you're expediting through, it's because late change, late development, late work on the product. So it's more of a collaboration up front with your customer to design a product that works right the first time, right? And that you can develop then a supply chain around to manufacture at the right price, right quality, right time. So ultimately it's collaboration up front. Easier said than done, but giving yourself time to really set up a successful supply chain that's optimal.
Okay, I would agree with that, what you said there, especially on the at the plants that we have at a higher, we're closer to the automaker. Okay, so like the driveline division, they're building right at the assembly, right? So we're following the assembly. So there's not a lot of there's change, but it's not every single week and big changes. But when you go down to the casting level now, a whole different business unit, any change up here there's a huge bullwhip that happens, and I've not been able to figure out yet how to get that, how to get closer to those customers, because they're reacting and then they're reacting, and then maybe that's from the driveline, right? So and then the OE. So by the time it gets down there, they're big shifts, real big shifts. So I haven't really figured that one out, but as you get at the higher level, it definitely is collaboration. Right, so anytime we have meetings once a month with all of our big OEs where we go on site and we talk about what they're doing next and what they're seeing, and if they say they're going to go to a 6-day shift for 5 or 6 weeks, then they're talking to us about that, so we can go back and check with our suppliers to see our bottlenecks or the ones that run the closest capacity with us. We can double check those and make sure that they can build it, and then we go tell them, and then they release the orders. So we really do have a very close collaboration with them. But then back down to the different levels, it's just not there at the lower tier, I'll say.
Yeah, and we sit here every year and we talk about schedule stability, but I mean it's the key to an optimal supply chain. So I mean it's very clear, increased communication, increased collaboration, understanding when it changes in the pipeline, and reacting. But what I've come to find out is the tiers aren't used to reacting that quickly. So you almost have to teach them the sense of urgency, what amount of safety stock to have, how to build an optimal supply chain that will protect swings in different types of scheduling. Because again, the way the OEMs are scheduling vehicles is a lot different than they did 5 years ago, right? So it's clear that we've got to be more flexible across the tiers in order to react.
Yeah. And you got to know when and where you can put the risk in, right? Because if you have an OE who's constantly, and you have all the data that shows that they're always releasing, and only the take rate is only 87% every but you can't just release 87%, right? Yeah. Otherwise, if they do ask for it. So it's really taking a look at that. We spent a lot of time with our quality department actually to help us calculate what that, the standard deviation should be. And we have started on some of those customers just ordering less, because what happens is if we, especially with the long supply chains, that stuff is in transit, that's ours, right? And there's nothing we can do. So we've actually started to, in some customers that are predictable, we'll release less.
Yeah.
And nobody carries a budget for obsolescence.
No.
Okay. And what about the other way? We've kind of looked at it from the car suppliers, you supplying the car makers, and you've talked about the chain, but how good are you at communicating with the tier supply, with your tier 2, 3, 4, 5 suppliers, Because I've had conversation with some parts suppliers that the car makers are awful, they never give us the right information, and they don't share and they don't collaborate. I said, and how are you with a tier 3 or 4 suppliers? And they said, well, they have to just do whatever we say. So how are you good at communicating down the chain? And again, to knit in on that one.
So I think from a Visteon perspective, what we are being doing, as I said before, in terms of we are trying to reduce our internal fluff, all the non-value add activities which are being happening. So I'll just give you a real example. Our CN life cycle initially was around sometimes more than 60 days. And because there was a lot of unnecessary people which are not even, they are just being put up into a workflow because of sake of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we are trying to do, and there is a lot of different variations to a process. So what we are trying to do is standardize it and remove the unnecessary fluff out of the system. Try to automate as is possible, whether we are using a workflows rather than having an email communication and all those manual work which used to happen. So I think as a result of that, we are able to do the things more faster. And even our lead times from our suppliers may continue to same because sometimes we don't have a control to it. But if we can go up and give them information at a right time or maybe earlier, and that actually compensates some of the lead time or some of the delays which we are facing on the other side. So I think that's how somehow we are being trying to mitigate that risk and circumvent for us to at least get the right time deliveries. And that is also helping us to reduce our safety stocks even internally out there too.
So I'd say it's overall, it's a challenge today, right? We complain about a schedule stability on the OEM side, but then what do we give our vendors? It comes back to you've got different size plants, different dynamics, you've got different level of expertise in the plants. And so, really I think that'll be a focus here moving forward on how we can get more consistent. The other factor is you're dealing with a different level of supply base, right? Some of these suppliers might not even have EDI. Some of the new technology suppliers that we're bringing on board have never worked in automotive before, so it's unique. So it's really, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's more of the maturity of the tiered supply chain and the focus and the importance moving forward.
So I would say we have, we use traditional EDI for our releasing, and we release out 40 weeks, as much as the customer will give us. So we try to at least give 16, but between 16 and 40 weeks out. That's pretty consistent across all of them except for the plant that just buys sand. Okay, so that plant is a little bit different. And we also have I would say we've taken the 862 or the Delgit, and we've actually created a Kanban. So in some plants that are more sophisticated, they can scan at the line when something's used, and that creates the Delgit to the supplier. It is a lot more work. I mean, it's not working inside our plant, but it's not work for them. I mean, it's more predictable because we're telling them, and then there's also parameters that tell them when they need to ship. So it's not like you have to ship tomorrow. There's the transit days are built in, and their manufacturing time is built in there, that kind of thing. So the information is there, but they have to put that Kanban number on all their paperwork, right? So it does add some complexity, but it definitely has reduced our inventory and actually helped them because then we're not guessing, we're not, what we need. We're actually we're scanning that. But then again, everything's it's all integrated, so it gets others get complicated. Because then the transportation network gets complicated, right? Because I'm not saying I want, there's a 500, so I want, divide it by 2 because I have 2 shipments. I'm scanning. So if I have a plant that's using batch, then they're going to get all those scans the same day. And if it's a plant that's an assembly line, they're going to get as they use it like a drumbeat. So you have to pick which solution works. But we're trying to build a toolbox. So depending on the type of supplier, then we have a varied number of solutions that they can use for that supplier. So.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a question over there.
Hi, everyone. Kind of an interview question, a little bit like what keeps you up at night. But if you had one problem, just one, you guys could solve immediately, what would that be? And then if you had one problem 5 years from now that you would like to make sure you don't run into, what would that be? So kind of what is the current sort of hot button for you? And then 5 years from now, what do you think is that next one that's coming down the road?
Can you say your name and company just to help us?
Sir? I could. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Steven Sargunaraj with Kuehne Nagel.
Thanks, Steve.
I'll take that first. So first I would say data integrity. And what I mean by that is that anytime you look at an ERP system, that the balance is accurate. So we have a lot of shop floor reporting going in, and we have our transactions scan going out, but then there's tear down that when, on some of our product that we tear down on purpose, that adds complexity. So if the inventory balances were correct in the ERP system, if I could solve that problem in our plants, it'd solve a lot of problems, okay? And then I would say in 5 years from now, it's the visibility, the overall visibility, so that everything is all in one system, right? Whether in the last session I was talking about, when you have something moving, you know where the product is. In general, you know where it is, but is it when it gets to a cross dock? Do you know that it's at the cross dock? And if it goes to a second cross dock, do you know that it got there? When there's customs, to be able to see all those pins on a transportation on a screen, so where your product is flowing.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, I'd say that's my immediate need. I mean, the visibility from order to application at the line. If we could get full transparency, we've talked about that for a while, but if we get full transparency on where that specific piece is, the entire process, it solves a lot of people's problems in the room and throughout the supply chain. And I think when you look at the 5-year outlook, it's really going to be how do we apply AI and some of the technologies Nitin was talking about within our space to really take advantage of it, and how much of this is our supply chain is going to be computer operated here moving forward versus how it is today. So those are.
I think from my perspective, to me right now is the data. I have tons of data which a lot of my applications are being churning out. I know I have machines, I have robotic machines which are being churning a lot of data, but what exactly is there in that data, whether it's a good data or there is a kind of a garbage in, garbage out. I have an ERP application, I have a PLM application, I have another financial management application. Everywhere my same single entity has a different definition to it. I have a data which is getting captured, but when I go up to visibility or when my management asks for the reporting, technologically I can go up and bring that data all together. I can design the best data lakes and data warehouses of the world. I can design the KPIs, but what comes out of that there is no reliability of it. I think that's my biggest challenge, which keeps me awake out there. During next 5 years, definitely I like to see more kind of a streamlined business processes and maybe used some of the capabilities like machine learning, AI, RPA. If I have a reliability and more predictability in my processes and my data. I think all these things looks good. As I said before, they all looks like a good silver bullet which can go up and solve every issue. But underlying, if you don't have your foundation right, if you are not getting your elements right, then all this technology are of no use.
Okay, thank you. Another question at the back, thank you.
Good afternoon. On the same topic, my name's Jeff Loster from CF. We talked about in one of the other breakout sessions about cross-border trade and linking events, and Faith, you just touched on it. With the people that are here in the room and some of the other speakers, is it possible that some of you folks get together and start talking about industry standards, maybe perhaps AIAG, and bring all these different events and links in the supply chain together so that everyone can see all the information they need through one portal, one system? Thank you.
I think on the standards side, that probably is a good idea, and we can go to AIAG, and they're always looking for things from us to do that. So we could rally together and go to see them. I think one system would be very difficult because it takes a lot of the competitive advantage away. If we were all using the same system, it would take a lot of our competitive advantage away from each other. So I don't think that probably would. My guess is that wouldn't happen. But maybe if we're all on the same standard, at least like we have the ASNs. I think we talked about that a little bit there. We have that, but there isn't a communication flow when it hits things in the transportation. There's not like a standard transaction set that the cross-dock has to send or anything like that, and that there's a potential there, I guess.
No, I think that the standards should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and we probably need to wake up and get back together and get some energy around that, along with the OEMs. In terms of, I really believe on the tier 1 basis, there's a lot of room for collaboration. If you're not competing against the tier 1, there should be a great opportunity to take our networks that are really, if you looked at the footprint across the United States and in North America, for us, it's spread out and it's tough to get scale. If I could team up with 5 other companies the size of mine, had an LLP that would work together to consolidate those networks, I believe we could shed a lot of cost out of and efficiency out of that for sure.
Yeah, I think from an IT perspective, definitely I think anything which can be standardized and can be reusable, and taking a step forward, if there is a service provider who's taking an initiative and can build up a solution and some kind of a solution around it, that definitely is a great cost savings for all the organizations and brings up a great value to the business and helps us out in, I will say, digitization and kind of a recalibrating of our supply chains and making our life more easier.
And I probably should qualify, when I was talking about competitive edge, I really was talking about one system that every supplier would use. But as far as like what you're talking about, like transportation, I mean, it doesn't matter to me who my product is riding with at all, even if I was a competitor. I mean, if you can find that synergy of a backhaul, I mean, you take probably about 30% of the cost out.
Yep.
But whenever we've talked about collaboration, everyone kind of agrees, this is a great idea, I think it'll really work. But then there is that, but if. If there was a crisis, if there was a storm, what if my competitor, got an advantage from it? So that always seems to be the kind of like, yeah, it sounds really good, but. So I'm not sure, we're quite ready to cross that line.
No, but when we talk about a collaboration, it is not at the stage where we start sharing our applications. It's more of standardizing an application. If you have a common standard, a common set of documents which you can share, a common system which can integrate, I think that itself is kind of a half-battle one.
Yeah.
But I would say, to your point, in terms of the service and do you get priority when everything's falling apart, I'd say there's more and more warming up to collaboration. I mean, if you could put a value prop around it very quickly, believe me, there's an appetite across the business to
And there's way more tier 1s than there are your competitors, right? So you have, your competitors are probably on maybe 2 hands, right? Not that many competitors. Most of the tier 1s out there are not competitors.
Yeah. There's enough people you can collaborate with who aren't competitors.
The tough part is when you have a plan and then you send your EDI in and one blows out the truck before the truck gets there. So there's got to be rules set up, and it's not easy. It's not easy unless you're through a console. If you're through a console, then they can just throw it on the next truck. But if it's going to make something wait, so it was really tough when we were trying to do that with milk runs because it would do that. But on a console, it is much easier if you could if you know more product going south or north.
That's the clear challenge is that. We want to consolidate a network, but I don't want you coming in and telling me that I'm paying more because our partner didn't schedule consistently.
Exactly.
So it's a complex give or take. Right?
Yeah. And Nitin, it must be difficult as a tier supplier, because all 3 of you are big, substantial tier suppliers. So you're supporting multiple customers. You've got multiple suppliers. So your job is kind of connecting your own group, making sure that all your plants and your different people are working, on systems, but connecting all of that with multiple OEMs who have multiple systems to working with. And then you've got, go down 2, 3, or 4 tier suppliers who've got again, different systems, if any. They might not even have any systems, depending on how far down you go. So it must be worse working for a tier supplier than for a car maker. With the car maker, you've got your system and you try and get everyone to work with it. For a substantial tier supplier, you've got to support and connect with multiple systems.
Yes, there is, but as I said, most of it is a common protocol, which do exist in most, because if I have been handling with Volkswagen, it's more or less, even if Volkswagen is being connecting out to my 50 different plants, more or less the information which they are looking is kind of a consistent. Where the variability comes is that when Volkswagen, Ford, Toyota, they all don't have a different kind of a standards. There is no consistency there. And the kind of information and the kind of the data maps which they look for is very different. I think that's where the most challenges comes up.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things which, to your point, I think is for plants also right now what we are trying to do out there is, I have right now 50 different applications of, even for a single thing, there has 50 different instances which are running. And all those have a different 50 different processes and different point-to-point interfaces. So with some of the techniques like middleware, like Boomi and SOA and some other things, where you are getting into more kind of a hub and spoke kind of architecture. So that's, I think, we have been trying to solve a problem rather than having, even if the information is different, and you are creating one kind of a common repository which is representative of all the different data elements, which we have multiple partners are existing, creating a hub, and then providing information as it is required, rather than writing 50 different point-to-point interfaces and then having a support to it. So I think that's where some of the new technology advancements and kind of a process creativity which can come in can help you to solve the issues.
Okay. And we're going to be looking forward as well, but I was having a conversation with another car maker about innovation, and they said, to be fair, at the moment, I'd rather have standardization rather than innovation. So that would actually help me more in my current job. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the ability for the OEMs to drive competition and make parts more of a commodity is to their best interest, right? So I think that's partially their push, and then on the tiered level, it's more of how can we innovate our product to take us out of the commodity landscape. And so, I think it's a give and take, but I'm not surprised by that comment.
Yeah. Again, if you've got any questions, just raise your hands. We just had a kind of a session, I had working group nights on packaging, and that seems to be a huge issue. There's a couple of topics on this. I think that I still kind of think one of my aims is for automotive logistics, automotive supply chain management to be recognized for its importance at CEO level, at car makers and part suppliers. But then when they do get involved, you kind of think, I wish they'd leave us alone. Because one of the things that I've been noticed as being brought up at CEO level is packaging and the cost of packaging. It just seems to be, why the heck are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars on packaging every time there's a new product launch or product change? So again, huge issue for car makers, and again, the same kind of standardization issue I raised then about it's all right, the car makers can't track their packaging. You're supporting multiple car makers with multiple ways of working their packaging. So how much of an issue is packaging for you guys?
I said the biggest issue for us at American Axle now is the fact that it's a little embarrassing, but I have no idea where any of our packaging is right now. Not one container. So when I was at Ventler Automotive, it was small. It was all North America I had, and it was smaller. I only had 9 plants, and we used the same system, and we were able to tie the packaging into the bill of material, and then we shipped it like a part, and then we received it like a part. So we were able to do that, but this is just way too big for that, and we don't track it. So the fact that we're not tracking an asset that huge in dollars is absolutely crazy. So it's on the list, but that's probably the biggest one. And the second is just shortages from the customer that you don't. I mean, we have to build We have to build on a schedule. We don't want to build on Saturday and Sunday, but the package isn't there, right? They short a package, or it's stuck in the line, or it's on a rail, and how do we, because it's hard to get the money back.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we still buy an extraordinary amount of cardboard, and cardboard prices are going up as pulp goes up, and so pulp and paper go up. So, it's becoming more of a focus of how can you run a total landed business case, shift the cardboard to expendable, shift from expendable to returnable, and really look at the supply chain and collaborate with your vendors. Now, that drives a bit more discipline to your other tiers. And it also, it scares you because there's still that lack of visibility, quite frankly, right? There's seems to be the visibility to get the parts there, but to get the containers back, it still seems to be a bit of a struggle within the network.
And
So
how
the
can
exciting
IT
challenge
support?
which we are facing from packaging, at least what I see from an IT perspective, is that our packaging size, especially from an inbound shipments, is becoming smaller. Because now we have semiconductors and electronic components coming up. Those are not big boxes, they are small boxes. So what's bringing us the challenge is that our consolidation lead time on those is becoming higher. I can't afford to keep those boxes at my freight forward for a longer time and let them consolidate and then come as an FTL, which I used to do before. Now, as a result of my FTL numbers are getting down, and I have to pay more freight because I have to now get that for my reducing, as I said, I'm having a lot of pressure because I'm right now facing a lot of competition from a high consumer electronics. So I have to get through air, I have to get through different routes through LTL, which is costing more. So our freight cost is having a lot of pressure on supply chain as a result of some of these packaging issues. At least that's something which something unique which we have seen, at least from a Visteon perspective.
Okay. And then to the impact of electric vehicles, new energy vehicles on the part suppliers. How is that affecting you and your supply chains?
For Cooper Standard specifically, it doesn't really impact us in the short term. I think our product portfolio is aligned where we actually increase some of the content we have on vehicles, which is good, on our FTS product, and I think it's slow to come, but as we see that transition, we're going to see a new, I referenced it earlier, a different breed of suppliers, right, on the technology front that haven't done a lot of business with the general automotive, in the general automotive environment. So I think that'll be a struggle. So it'll put more pressure back on us to have pretty standardized processes and systems that we can roll out, not a one-size-fits-all model. And I think that will be a focus moving forward.
Yeah. And really the question wasn't meant, I didn't say it correctly, really. It was more about more electrification in vehicles, not just about electric vehicles, but now there's already how much electric in a car. So your point about the new supply base is very much the point. And I don't know
So
if
we're
that
facing
affects
a lot of that in Europe, actually. Not so much here, but in Europe we're facing that. And first, the value of our product is 3 times what it used to be, or 4. In some cases, 4 times. In some cases, actually, 1 is 10 times. So the value is much higher. What we're finding also is that we have to lock the product up, where the rest of our product that we have to, in our raw material, we have to lock it up, and then so it's a lot more controlled. There's a lot more, we have to go back now. So like what we didn't plan and didn't budget in the business case because we didn't have a lot of experience with it yet. So a lesson learned there is we have to send it back to get flashed or reflashed, right? Something will happen and then we have to send it all back. Even the in transit, turn the in transit around, get the new product back in. So that's been kind of a new for us. And I'll say the third would be, I'm trying to tell LG what to do. And I'm serious. And that is not easy because they have their own, they're much bigger than we are. They really don't care about automotive ODET standards over in Europe. And it's been a real education because, that's where we're buying this stuff from, is LG directly. And others like LG, but they're not a traditional automotive supplier, so it's been very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting because I did hear another purchasing person say we need to teach them how to be automotive suppliers, but I wonder if it's the opposite. We need to learn how to buy from them.
Right, right.
In fact, electrification is causing another kind of a big challenge right now, is because once electrification comes in, you have to, because more than it's running on the battery power. So how much you can optimize that battery power continues to be a challenge. Now what that entails to is that you have different functions in a car. Everything is kind of a mini core, and they are been running out there. So what's happening is now in the industry, everybody is trying to optimize and come up with algorithms which can optimize that how much power its different cores are going to be taking, or you are going to have a common core which can go up and take multiple functions. And a lot of companies in the Silicon Valley have groomed up, which are being kind of bringing up a lot of competition for us, at least what I saw from Visteon.
Yeah. And I think we're finding new solutions, new ideas. It's a learning process. There was a car maker who was shipping the chips for their GPS system with the maps on it and so on. They were shipping them from America to Europe, and it was costing them a fortune. And then they found out that the reason there was a really high kind of customs cost, but the customs cost was because they were filled chips. They had the information on them, and that's what was costing them money. They then realized they were just buying the empty chips and then putting the information on, when it was in Europe, and they saved an absolute fortune, millions. But these are the learnings that we'll find as the industry changes.
Well, it's happening today. I mean, with all of the latest round of Chinese tariffs, it all depends on what the classification of a certain part is, and if you can add a certain part of value add to it, you can get out of paying 25% tariff. It's a big deal. So it's really understanding that and being able to react quickly. The problem is that there seems to be a new round that comes every month. So ability to react.
Can we get one more today, actually?
Again, any questions from the audience? I can't see because of the light, so maybe you'll have to shout. But and then kind of looking ahead as well. Or even do you have a chance to look ahead? You're so busy on your everyday job, as I kind of said at the beginning of the conference. Do you have a chance to think, let me really examine this blockchain stuff and see where the value is, or let's really look at this, or are you kind of so busy doing today's and yesterday's job that you don't have a chance? Because it's a shame to miss the advantages of looking ahead, but do you get the chance to do it?
Well, I think not as much as I want, but the key is there's a lot of catch-up. It seems in this industry we're always catching up in terms of data and data transparency. So it's really, that's where we have to rely on our business partners like Nitin to our supply chain, or our supply chain and our IT team to really bring us solutions that are not just solving the problem today, but are bringing innovation on top of it. So we're not, because next thing you know, we're never getting ahead. So I think that's the focus, is working with your business partners to make sure you're introducing solutions that are innovative and taking a look at the future.
We do have time, and we make time. I mean, we have collaboration with IT and our engineering department. So we do take time and we make time to do it, but it's slow. It definitely is slow because the day-to-day definitely trumps what's going on. So, but I see it improving. More time is coming.
And Nitin, how are you collaborating? Because they've got the pain, obviously sometimes a division or whatever it is, the logistics supply chain have the pain points. They'll turn to you, but are they open to new ideas? And how does it work? Do they have to say, this is what I want, can you find it? Do you look around and say, I've just found a great solution, do you want to consider it? How does that kind of work?
So I think it's been a kind of a mixed bag. So a lot of times there has been a defined problem for which you go up and look for a solution, and that solution may fit in. But that solution is just addressing your kind of, to me, is a symptoms, not the root cause of the problem.
Good point.
And yes, you can go up and take a solution and put up a Band-Aid, and that can solve the things to bleed. But most of the times, at least with Visteon, We are forced to, with all the innovation, with all the changes which have been happening in the company, as I said, our core DNA is being changing. So we don't have a choice rather than to innovate. So we are being closely, and business is being working very closely with us. IT can, as I said before, IT can provide the tools, and even the service providers we are looking, they can come up and talk about cloud, they can talk about AI, but the challenge which we face is that nobody knows that domain. And the best domain knowledge is going to come from business.
Yeah.
So what we have a dedicated business group which is dedicated to innovations. They are looking into specific use cases, which we are being kind of collaborating and working on small POCs, not going big bang, and then having a kind of an ROI and making sure that the project which we are being doing somehow self-funds itself.
Yeah.
I think that's a kind of a methodology we are being adopting to move the company ahead.
And for you in your position, you must have, in the old days, apparently, because I'm too young to know, there was limited suppliers to the automotive industry, and maybe a couple of people would come in with new ideas. You must be inundated with, startups who've got, and every one of them has got the perfect solution to every problem. And yet, using the example of, you peel the onion skin back, and then you just find that there's, so how do you sort, the good information from the bad? How can you look at all the information out there, all the potential startups or new ideas or companies? How can you look at all of that stuff and try and work out what's best for Visteon?
See, for me, the key thing right now is, from a technology perspective, in a lot of these technologies like AI, when you talk about a machine learning, most of the SI providers or the system providers, they are at par, or maybe there are very less differences when you actually are starting fresh.
Yeah.
There may be some advancements there, but more or less they are kind of function-wise they are same. I think to me what matters is the kind of domain knowledge which they carry, what kind of an experience they have done it, and how much they can work with me as a company.
No.
And that's the reason I alluded to, is that at least from a Visteon perspective, we don't want to go up and work with very big suppliers or big software providers in SI who are more rigid in their methodology and things. So I'll prefer to work with kind of a mid-sized company or a small-sized company who is ready to do a POC, maybe some at their own investment and some at my investment, and continue to and start innovating a product which I can go up and now take to a business. I think that's going to be a key for me to select or shortlist the right service provider, which can work for us.
So Louis, I would also say it depends on what technology you're talking about, right? So in terms of visibility and day-to-day, I think people up here would say that we'd like to see somebody else try it out, right? And we'd like to see, we don't want to be the proof of concept, believe me, all right? But on the machine learning, AI, RPA front, there's a lot more willingness to try those out and jump in. But I think when you talk about freight visibility and material flow, that's something that's very sensitive in terms of change.
And how do you sell? How do you get the investment? If you found, because we started off by saying how much cost pressure the part suppliers are under. How do you secure investment for a new system, perhaps in this instance, because we kind of got the IT focus here? How do you secure the investment? Will they allow you? You will see millions of dollars return in 5 years' time, so they're willing to take that risk. How do you secure? What's the best way of securing the investment?
Well, for us, it's a business case. We have to develop a business case, and if it's a positive business case, they'll give me the money on the spot. If it's really positive, and otherwise, sometimes I have to go get capital money. But it comes down to the return on investment, or the NPV. So once we have that net present value and it makes sense, then I can spend the money.
But is there a timeline to that?
Well, if it's some of it is the right thing to do, like visibility and like transactions inside the integrated plant floor, that's a little bit tougher, but if it's the right thing to do, then we also don't really have an issue securing funds because it does take less time for the operator, right? So anytime we take time off the operator, it's like gold.
Yeah, I'd say in risk management is key. It's a key theme throughout the supply chain today. And so everybody, independent of where you sit within the company, if you're in finance, you're in operations, there's that discussion about, do you have a backup supplier? Do you have visibility? Do you have this? Do you have that?
Are you dual sourced?
In order to protect the business. The other aspect here, there's two main things that make up the business case. It's really inventory, right? So cash, and then it's really human capital, right? So out of those two things, what can you do to reduce inventory, reduce headcount, drive efficiency?
And Nitin, how important is logistics to your role in the sense, do logistics and supply chain have to follow what manufacturing do? Because, the big kind of powerhouses tend to be manufacturing and purchasing in our kind of sector, in the operations side. Are logistics considered right up there alongside them, or do manufacturers say, this is what we want, or is it plant-led? Or, who are the powerhouses that you have to support first before you get to logistics?
I think you're right. Powerhouses definitely is manufacturing. I think they are, because they have to cater and do the demand of a customer. And for us, for tier one, OEMs are the king. That's what, if manufacturing doesn't deliver the things by the time, I think that's going to be. But I think what slowly, and that's where the internal collaboration is being coming. I think people are realizing that manufacturing can't work in a silo unless you have a correct logistics in place and less trackability in place. So at Visteon, what we have tried to do is we have built up something called a supply chain centers. So it's a group of different representatives from each operating process area. And from IT perspective, we have given them a right tools and dashboard from a big data perspective, and they can go up and visualize the different facets of the supply chain, whether it is from logistics coming from a TMS application, whether manufacturing coming from MES or some of the IoT data, and then can see where some of the risk and deficiencies are, and then can collaborate with each other. So I think that's going to be a key, but at least from Visteon perspective, I still can see manufacturing still has an upper hand, and people try to follow them up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the evolution of this, right? Business engagement from IT hasn't always been there. So, we really, at Cooper, we've got a business engagement IT person that sits on our staff that really listens to our wants and needs. And so it's not just manufacturing always gets priority and gets the funding. It's really everybody has their say. Everybody has the ability to look at the supply chain, look at the wants and needs, and get priority, and which is key. So it's overall the shift of the organization where IT is an integrated part.
Same here. And we, so somebody on my staff is also the supply chain business person. And for anything that has to do with supply chain, regardless of what plant it is or what business unit it is, I set the priority. So it's we definitely have it so that it's very, we don't have other people like this plant wants to do that or that plant. I take a look at it, and if we already have a solution or we have a standardized solution, then I can make that decision. So it's not like we have to fight for who makes the decision. I mean, obviously, I don't just make decisions about data, but I'm saying that we have an infrastructure, so there's no question. Okay. And it's the same thing for any of the left-siders. We call them, or on the side of the matrix. For engineering and finance, there's one person who has the lead, who makes the decision and helps with the prioritization of what needs to be. If there's a resource issue in IT or conflicting projects, or something comes in that's a higher priority, that one person in each on the left side of the organization makes that decision.
Okay. Any questions? Any final questions before we wrap up? No? Okay. Want to thank the panel for, because I think it was interesting, honest answers as well. Thank you very much for that. But I just want to kind of make a point about what I said at the beginning. it was kind of obvious here, and also from the question from Zef over there about there needs to be more communication, to support the tier suppliers. So as we said, whether it's from tier suppliers or car makers to tier suppliers to LSPs, tier suppliers to each other, and if there's anything that Automotive Logistics, the group us, can do to support that. So whether it's these kind of events, whether it's smaller events, whether it's online communities, whatever we can do to support that, because it is a big focus for me for the next year or so. And even if you say, I've got some great ideas, but we don't want Automotive Logistics involved, we don't want, I don't know, whatever you might consider us to be the press, we don't want the press involved. Anything we can do to support the tier supplier industry, please let us know, because it is an important sector. More and more of Automotive Logistics is being led, managed by you guys, and it could probably maybe get even worse, better, which way you look at it, as the car makers become mobility providers more than anything. And as we said, that more and more of the pressure is on you guys, for not just because the car makers are passing it down, but even internally. I've heard one conversation that one company, and well, more than one company, spending a fortune to change what they are, to become providers in a way, to the mobility industry, and they're spending a fortune on research and development and engineering and so on. And that money's coming from somewhere, and very often that money's coming from operations, which definitely includes the supply chain and logistics angle. And then there's the cost pressure from the car makers as well, as if that's not enough. So anything we can do, whether it's articles in the magazines, opinion pieces from you, events, whether they're big or small, online communities or something like that, please let us know, because we do think that we do get the feedback that something's needed. And whatever that is, if you wanted to do it through AIG or OESA or anyone else, we're happy to support that. But we might be a voice to help you to go in the direction that you want.
I think, Chris, from my side, I think one thing which is going to be very helpful is around the leapfrog technologies. I think, as we all have said, that all these new innovations which comes up, when a SI or a product vendor comes to there is a lot of fluff and sales talks to it. And we have to really put up some good investment and POCs to prove it out. I think it will be good to understand what some of the other companies are doing, what some of the challenges which they faced, whether they were successful or what are kind of a failure points or lessons learned. I think if we can, as maybe in a tier one vendor perspective, we can commonly have a forum where we can share our ideas and share what our struggles in particular solution areas are. I think that will help us out to be more proactive and understanding and selecting a right solution rather than going us and reinventing the wheel every time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, well, thank you very much for the panel. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to join us for our dinner tonight, it's hosted by our good friends Ryder, the premier sponsors of our conference. As I said, since the year 2000, from our very first conference. It's going to be at the Detroit Opera House. I've had a lot of requests for me to sing there as well, for obvious reasons. Faith, come on, I thought you were a friend of mine.
I'll be there.
So please join us for the Ryder Gala dinner. The coaches will be outside, and then in fact at the Detroit Opera House, moving up to the Sky Deck at about 9 p.m. for the Sergere party, where I turn from Pavarotti to Marvin Gaye or whatever it is overnight. So there's going to be great networking, great food, drink, a great opportunity to meet different people. So don't get put off by my singing. But thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed the first day. Back bright and early at 9 o'clock, back into this room for a very important discussion on the human resources issue in automotive logistics. So we're not just, in fact, we're talking less perhaps about the senior supply chain management positions, but we're looking at drivers, warehouse people, line side people, how we make the automotive logistics industry more attractive for people to join the industry. Then after that, we've invited some students from local universities to meet very informally. I think it's in the lunchroom where we get a chance to tell them why they should join the automotive industry, and we'll also be hearing from them why they are, why they're not considering it, and what they expect from their careers. There's also a discussion tomorrow about the trades and tariffs, implications for automotive logistics and automotive supply chains, but giving us an overall feedback on what's happened, the latest developments in that. And then after lunch, we've got a final roundup panel to talk about what we've discussed over the 2 days and how the industry can move forward from a supply chain and logistics perspective. So hope you've had a good day today. Hope you have a fantastic evening tomorrow, but don't forget to be back here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. But thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.